More so you than Larry. So I got a question for you guys, opinions, thoughts on it, because I ran into this at Geneva and I've never run into it any other show that I can think of that I've ever done. Aaron's really picky or particular about what constitutes an original, and it's put forward as an originals only art show. That seems an elusive concept. It's easier. The person? Who?
Yeah.
Aaron Malloy, the director.
What show is that?
Geneva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it seems problematic because I don't, and I know she did a lot of research into this years ago, trying to figure out what limited editions were, what reproductions are, what are clays, et cetera, et cetera. But photographers, what in photography, to me, the word reproduction implies a copy of something. And an original.
Photography is a medium of multiple originals.
Which means there's no original.
No, it means every time you make a print, it's an original, because what exists before the print is made is not something that's tangible.
But if you do a limited edition, you can't have 250 originals. That doesn't make any sense.
No, but you can have 250 of an edition, but each one is an original.
Well, that's not quite how it played out. And like she doesn't allow.
I have a great article. I have a great article on my website. I interviewed the Howard Greenberg Gallery, who rep the Time Life people.
Okay.
Henri Cartier-Bresson's, representative in the U.S. I have an interview with them on what's considered an original, and everybody says the same thing. In photography, there is no reproduction.
I would agree. But to say that they're originals, to me, is problematic, because an original in almost every other form of art, and painting being the one closest to us, implies there is one piece that is created, that is the original. Everything that is made from that is a reproduction. But from that means that it's made from a single painting. Right. But all of our photographs are made.
They're not made from another photograph.
They're made from a photograph, either a film.
No, they're not. That's not a photograph.
It's not. It's the medium of photography. Is the capture.
No.
Hey. The capture method is either film or digital capture, and that image that you capture.
But that's not the original. That goes into what makes the original.
What you photographers
can't sell that.
What else you're going to say?
Elusive digital file.
Selling has nothing to do with this topic.
Keep going, guys.
What about an etching, Ron?
Pardon?
What about an etching?
Yeah, that's what I was
saying. Etching is also an original.
Yeah.
You have the metal, and then you have the print, and the print is the work of art. The metal is just the foundation for the work of art.
Right, and etching is another medium of multiple originals, except that the only difference is they deteriorate the more they're made, where photography, it doesn't deteriorate.
Some people think even the last print that you make a photography is usually the best one or the best, not the first one.
Let me find the article.
Okay, well, let's for the sake of stepping forward here for a second, if we assume that what you're saying, Larry, is pretty broadly accepted by all kinds of people, that photography
in the art world, it is not in the art show world.
Okay, but then let's say that's true. Does it matter what you print that original on? Paper versus metal versus.
No.
Okay, see, Aaron has rules that photographers cannot print their work on canvas. They cannot.
That's because it's a painters run organization and they're afraid of the competition.
My issue here is not about the politics. It's about the definition.
Well, but that is politics.
Hold on.
It's not a painter's show. It's
Hold on.
But that's the people that are putting pressure on her are painters.
Wait a minute. It's her bat and ball. She can do whatever she wants.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make it right in the art world.
It makes it right because it's hers. What do you mean?
No,
She
it
can do
only
whatever
makes
she
it
wants.
right in her world.
That's right. I would agree with Larry on this. It's whether it's true that that's a definition of an original and therefore certain forms are not allowed because the definition is not being applied correctly. That's not correct. And Aaron has never come across to me as someone that would do that. But this definition thing of hers is problematic. Plus, that's how she is promoting it to the public. This is a show about originals. Well, if you're cutting out a lot of art for whatever reason, unfairly, that's not doing a service to your public either.
It's not unfairly. It's her show. She can do what she wants.
Right, but it doesn't apply to the rest of the world.
So what does that have to do with anything? Hey,
Well,
with clay, there's two worlds. You're right, Larry, you hit on it. There's the art fair world and the art world, and it's two separate entities.
Well, and different art fairs are different worlds.
That's right.
Take that further, Barry. I mean, that's what you were saying before.
Yeah,
It's her show, it's her world. A different art show is a different world.
Yep.
in my show, you could only have one photograph of one thing and then you'd have to have another one. Okay, I don't really mean that. I'm just saying that to give you guys a hard time. But you know, it is a problem, you know. When I could get my pieces made in make the first one and have them made in Thailand, then to me that's fair. For me,
Amen.
for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But you missing a point about photography and painting. This is the thing that I get annoyed with people. There's so much that a photographer can bear in the market. You cannot sell a 40 by 60 print for a photograph for the same price as 40 by 60 painting. So for me to match up the same value that our painter is making a 40 by 60 painting, I need to sell 5 or 6 of mine before I can come close to his price point.
And I'm gonna sell 30 pots. Wait a minute, I gotta
What?
sell 30 pots. It takes me just as long, and degree of difficulty is much greater, and yet they get it. I've seen, I won't tell you the show, but I was at a show where the person across from me had horrible paintings. I mean, like, it would give you a headache to look at it, or you would laugh, and she did $60,000, you know?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much you can charge for a cup of a mug. There's so much you can charge for a base. There's so much that you can charge for a photograph or a wallet. No matter how well it's done, it's half a fair market. Then after that comes to paintings. You can charge whatever you feel like it because it's a different era, you know. And there's still people think that way.
It depends upon the market, because I know ceramics in like the design world, where people are going to places and buying multiples, you know, for hotels or things like that. The prices seem to be a lot higher than, say, at a craft fair. So some of it is just kind of the perception of the market. Paintings on Canyon Road, which is the fancy street here, I mean, everything you look at is like, you know, $12,000, $100,000. I mean, where, you know, it's like you can't find anything on that street for $1,000 bucks.
Yeah.
So, you know, so part of it is just the actual venue. It could be the exact same work.
But with a painting, ever since I've known about art, if you buy an original painting, it's the only one that exists. Anything else that you have is a reproduction. And when I used to do shows in Chicago, we go out to galleries, and the gallery people were real friendly. They talked to us about giclées and how people were trying to mimic what looked like a real photograph, but they were giclées. They weren't actually paintings. But when you buy a painting, it's the only one that exists. And better or for worse, a lot of people that buy art, that's critical to them. They want the only one that exists. So you can charge whatever you want for an original. Photography, as Oscar's
Okay.
saying, we don't have that luxury.
I'm gonna start
Yeah, I
charging
know.
$12,000 I'll start at $12,000 for a little pot, because it's the only one. It's one of a
Well,
kind.
Yeah, and some people would go like, oh my God, here's an original, one of one and they would probably buy it and you'd go like, oh my God, what just happened?
Got it.
Believe me, I wish I could.
Perfect.
But part of it is also, branding. Like, there are some artists who make it into this netherworld, and whether you like the work or not, with I've seen it with jewelry. Like, there are people who
Any
movie
world.
stars wear their work, and it's like
Yeah.
nothing interesting. So
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
there's that whole thing too. But Giclée did a very good job at branding. I will say that.
So
Yep.
Eric, do you ever make a piece of jewelry that is exactly the same as another piece of jewelry that you had sold?
Not Eric.
No,
Also, because she doesn't
no.
buy hair.
They're all one-offs, but even the stones, like I don't, in fact, when I first went on to Artful Home and they put me in the catalog, you have to be able to make the same thing again. So like I could use diamonds because I know I can get those, but most of the stones I buy are not necessarily the same. I don't just have like cookie cutter sorts of things. I do repeat designs, but they're always with different stones.
Okay, so there is a difference between them when you make them. It may be
Yeah.
somewhat subtle, but it's different.
They don't have
And
to
there's
be exactly
actually,
like.
right, but because each little piece is handmade, it also is, upon inspection, that they're like, I had a gallery once say your ear wires aren't all the exact same length. Well, that's because I don't work in this production sort of style, and that's true. They're not all the same length. So yeah, no, upon inspection, nothing is exactly the same. Even if I use similar stones, they vary. I like a lot of freeform stones too. So, that's the nature of it, is that they would all be different.
Okay.
Anyway,
And
And-
Where
Barry,
did you change your name?
yeah, it shows as Eric now.
oh,
Well, she's on her husband's phone.
no,
Oh.
you know what? You know what it is? It's the last time when I was teaching, he logged me on. And let's see, can I change my name here? Yeah.
To protect the innocent?
Yeah.
So Barry, everything, when you create ceramics, correct?
Yeah.
When you create ceramics, is every piece thrown or do you ever use molds?
I've never used a mold.
Okay, if a ceramic artist made a mold, what would be the definition of an original like you're
However,
making?
okay, I can answer that. There are, just because it's made in a mold doesn't mean that you're making multiples. A lot of mold stuff is one of a kind. And really that would come down to your own preference. Like I would only make one or maybe a couple, because you can only use the mold a few times before you have to get rid of it. So so it would be limited. I never learned how to do that, but it looked like nothing I wanted to do.
But if you did molds and even made two or three pieces, would you
Yeah.
call each of those an original?
Yeah, well, that depends on the glazing, because you're only talking about the first part,
Okay,
Yeah,
which is nothing, there's surface treatment.
okay,
and you can have a mold. From what I see, my other friend ceramic, they have the mold to make the basic part, but then you have to, like they do tiles, and then they do the tile in the top manually. So it all depends what you're doing with it. It could be used to speed up one process, but
Yeah.
it's,
One of the reasons for using molds would be, like let's say I would make parts and then use some sort of clay slip to put them together and then glaze them, but they're not really connected. You would do the mold to make a one solid piece so that the two parts that you're connecting aren't, they're part of the piece. You're not connecting it, so you're not breaking it. It's easy to break when it seems to me that it's hard to connect two pieces and get it to stay connected. You got to be, at least I have to be careful when I'm doing that.
okay.
Because they'll break them and break it.
So if you made a ceramic chess set, you would want to use molds for the kings and the queens and the rooks
Yeah.
and the bishops and the
Yeah.
and if you use those molds for one chess set, it's definitely an original.
Right.
If you
The
use
chess
those
set-
molds for
the chess
multiple
set
chess
is the
sets, I don't know.
You're saying the chess set would be an original, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the pieces. I don't think you could make the board out of ceramics. It'd be
You
wood,
could.
I think. Yeah, you could.
Especially if you didn't, if it wasn't going to be moved around and nobody, especially if nobody played with it, it's a chess set as a work of art as opposed to as a game.
Well,
Checkmate.
thank you for the input on those. That helps. Yeah.
Frank, you
But
think
if you
checkmate?
want my opinion, that's one of the things that I hate about Erin. Like, because I think that she means well, but I think that she got the reputation that she always look photographers down. Like, we don't do as good work as the other people.
But
So,
but Oscar, what the alternative is to have a bunch of cards, cards that you're selling and all these little stuff.
Well, those are
I
reproductions.
don't do that.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that's the alternative.
But if I recall, like the late 70s, early 80s, photography was really just starting to be
Yeah.
acknowledged as an art form. And it had a hard time before that, like people accepting photography as an art form because it was seen maybe as journalism.
But Ansel Adams predates that, and
Yeah, but that's
Stieglitz
nothing to do
and
with
stuff.
art shows.
Well, true.
But,
When I first
Ansel-
started doing shows, black and white photography was photography.
Okay.
I
I'm
like
not
black
sure-
and white photography a lot.
Yeah.
But
But I'm not.
Ansel Adams was really surveying the West. He took, I wonder in his mind frame when he first started out, was he thinking this is a work of art, or he was just looking and capturing, what he saw?
Well,
Like, as far as the mentality goes.
he used to produce posters, which is why I think he got a lot of static when he first started doing fine art prints. Is that his early years were a lot of reproductions, and it's just. But I think photography, more so than most mediums, and you guys jump in if you think this is wrong, has gone through probably more evolution in the methods by which photographs are captured and taken.
Hey.
And even like when digital came out, people wanted to say, well, digital is a different form. It's not photography. And yet I would argue it is. It's just a different form. The same as plates used to be colloidal treated plates, and then film, and then black and white film first, and then color film. And color film was considered, I think, an interloper into photography initially. And then it went to digital. And it's just, it goes through a process. And it's one thing to say that in the art world, it's one thing, but if the art show world is supposed to mimic at all or represent to the public what the art world is, and using of terms like originals, reproductions, etc., I think my contention is they need to be consistent. I don't see the difference between the art world and the art show world. An original is an original, whatever it's going to be defined as. A reproduction is a reproduction. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Could be wrong.
But there's a big difference.
Ron, the world is full of people who look at the exact same thing and come to completely different conclusions. So
True.
what you're saying is perfectly reasonable, but in practice, you're going to have people with vastly different opinions, even though you're making perfect sense.
Which show is this?
Geneva.
Any of them.
Geneva. And what's the problem? I missed the beginning part.
The problem is it's too much pressure from painters to let photographers print on canvas.
Oh.
Isn't that fad over with? It's now metal. I don't see any
No, it's
printing on
both
canvas
now.
anymore.
Well,
Well-
see, and it's interesting you bring that up because I asked her specifically, I said, do you allow metal prints? And her answer was really disappointing because she goes, well, it's a new thing in the photography world, and that's emerged in the photography world, and we'll be looking at it more closely in the years to come. Well, metal prints have been around for what, 5, 6, 7 years at least. It's
At
not
least.
new.
At least.
At least.
At least.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with metal prints, with everybody except one person that I know that produces their own large metal prints, everybody sends them off to Bay Photo. So you sit down at a computer, you enter what you want to have printed. It's sent directly to the customer. You have no oversight of what the customer gets. You have to make some kind of a rationale that what they're going to receive is the same as they saw in your booth. That's a big leap of faith. And as far as the rule goes, in most shows that say made by the artist or under their direct supervision, I do not see how that works. I don't.
Well, that's called
every
direct
time I answer
supervision.
that,
That's called direct supervision. They're printing the picture for your customer from the same file they printed for your demonstration print.
If you had every image that printed that way, but if they go on your website, they choose an image you didn't have in your booth, you've never printed before, unless you have it.
Relevant.
Okay,
No, Ron, let me tell you, I do, every single print that they make for me is the same file that I have in my house. That I print in my house, and my prints match exactly what they do in the lab. And the different that I do other people is like when I get a break of 3 weeks between shows, I dump everything in my walls and have brand new prints. And I'm going to tell you, they always look the same. Nothing changed. It's really consistent.
that's not in your favor if you think about it, that they all look the same. One
Yeah,
after another,
all the
they all
prints
look the
thing is
same.
like the prints need to look the same. Like if I send you a print to Joe X in Virginia, same email sent to Joe C in California, they need to look the same, you know.
Agree.
Hey,
So
You know,
here's a philosophical conundrum for you guys. I saw a website a year or two ago. It was coded in pure HTML and it looked like an old master painting. It was entirely computer code.
Yeah,
And the computer code looked like letters and words and
yeah.
parentheses and things. So if somebody generated a print on metal of that, is that like a photograph?
No, I would say that's if it was created in the computer, it's digital art. That's where I think the word digital art comes into play. And there was an artist that I knew when I first started doing art shows that everything he created, he used animation software made by Disney to create his images, everything in the computer. And he was the only true digital artist that I personally ever met and interacted with. But his work, there was no other aspect to his work other than what he created as a file in his computer. And I think that's an appropriate use of the word digital because it is.
Okay. But I would bet that his technique and this lady's technique who did this amazing webpage was completely different. The only thing in common was that it was done on a computer.
But if it was done on a computer, there's nothing outside of the computer. I would say it's digital work.
I know that's no, Ron, I'm not
Okay.
disagreeing with that. I'm just,
Okay, I have an example here. I want you guys to discuss this. I set up, when I was in college as a grad assistant, I set up an Ansel Adams exhibit, okay? And the actual prints, you know, if I use that word incorrectly, so what, you know, you guys know what I'm talking about. The actual image was printed off the negatives, the Ansel Adams negatives. So how is that different than making something and sending it off to a metal guy to you know, to make the thing? How is there a difference? Because Ansel Adams wasn't there to sign the, you know, Ansel, you know, he's dead, so he's not signing the, you know, the image that you're buying, the framed image. So, and it just comes from his negative, you know, somebody printed it who was alive, obviously.
Well, my understanding is that when Ansel was passed away, he gave his image collection to, I think it was Arizona State University. And then several years ago, his grandson was working with some frame galleries that they wanted to scan signed, and this may be what you're talking about, signed original Ansel Adams prints and start selling them. And that to me is a reproduction, absolutely.
Well,
That absolutely would be reproduction.
Ansel Adams can't sign anything.
No, he can't. He's gone.
That's right.
Yeah. I would-
Okay, I just put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
Took me a while to find it.
And yes, it's University of Arizona, Tucson, Center for Creative Photography.
There. Good.
And they have a lot of, and I used to go there. They used to have these, you could get a viewing and it was free. They don't do it anymore because they don't have enough volunteers, but it was interesting because you could see the work prints of the photographer. So I saw, there were peach farmers that W. Eugene Smith photographed, and there were his notes on the side in his handwriting. And so that was just interesting to see. So you could see the exact same print in varied tones until, he's the one who edited that image to make it look the way it did.
Wow.
And that's really where the photographer's eye comes into it, because the photographer can manipulate how you feel, how you look at that image, and Eugene Smith always was very much extreme darks and lights. So it's just, the conversation is very interesting, what is an original. And with photography, some photography is literally manipulated into something else, where a lot of photography is about the image. So, and then like when Oscar has these digital files, he's the one that controls how you see that image, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I've got something at 5, so I'm going to say goodbye. I'll see you next week.
Good to see you.
Good to talk to you all.
So,
Okay.
I forgot to tell Bonnie, the jury is going to be a week from Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Cool.
I think
I
Bonnie
hope
is
that-
gone.
Yeah, I know. I hope we get more participants. I already have the jurors.
Wait a minute. Was Bonnie on the jury last time too?
Yeah, no, she's not going to be a juror this time.
I still want to be one.
Not this time, maybe the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Fred.
Larry, for you, Barry.
Larry, what's the date? Larry, what's the date on that?
August 4th at 4 o'clock.
August 4th at
So-
4 o'clock. Okay, are you,
Eastern
I can't
time.
remember, I'm sorry.
So
Are you sending out a link to it, or is it gonna be
It's the
YouTube
same-
You already
Live, or
did.
what's?
It's the same link.
You already did
No,
Oh,
it's the
okay,
same
I'm
link
just
as,
in-
as all the meetings.
today in an email.
Okay, I'm just getting back to the East Coast from Texas. I missed that. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to be on YouTube that night. So,
So Larry,
yeah.
what was I gonna say? I forgot. Oh, are you gonna mute me?
Well, everybody that's not a juror is going to have to be muted.
Oh, no. It's pretty hard to shut me up, obviously.
I can mute you now. You can mute yourself,
You
right?
just did you mute me?
Right. By the way, that link I put in the chat is an article on what is an original in photography. And I've interviewed a number of experts about it.
You know, I didn't even
Larry,
think,
wait, 1 second, Barry,
ahead.
you said you sent out a separate email?
No,
Or-
no, he's just kidding.
no, I got an email from you today,
Everybody did for today's meeting.
but there was something about and then, it went to something and then it said something about the,
Well, that
can
I'm
sign up.
taking images until the end of the month.
uh-huh.
But actually, I'm going to take images until next Wednesday.
Okay, mine doesn't even say anything related to
Now,
the
It'll-
jurying
no,
at all.
right.
I
it'll be in
misspoke.
the
I
next-
misspoke.
Yeah, it'll be. in
Oh,
the-
okay.
Click on the
Next
link and
week's.
it goes to the website and that's where it talks about it.
Right.
Okay, so instead of Tuesday at 4, click the same link Thursday at 4, August 4th for the jury. Got it.
Right. Right.
So no Tuesday? there's not gonna be a Tuesday next week?
Oh, yeah, there is.
Okay, so that's a separate issue, separate thing.
Right. Right. So you'll have a chance to talk.
Annette, I want to know how Annette did. I know you either did Ann Arbor or Madison, so I want to know what you did, how you did.
Oh, no, I was just in Madison. I didn't do very well because I didn't have anything really
No,
inexpensive.
that isn't why you didn't do well, because there are a bunch of cheap penny pinching and having said that, there were I talked to people that had their best show ever, so but not a whole lot. Maybe it was one street, but certainly not over by me.
I think it's just really a different kind of art. They're looking for more like what younger people
Trinkets.
buy, like, well, yeah, like prints, and it just seemed like really funky stuff. Like
I didn't see
don't know,
any
or I don't
framed
know.
anything go on.
different things that, I think people were buying there. So I don't know.
Stuff.
Yeah, little
Trinkets.
things. Oh, but I did make it into St. Armand's, so I guess I'll see you there.
Yeah, now that'll more than make up for it. Well, see, with Howard, it's like first come, first serve. You sign up, and if you're, because by now it's probably full, and everybody goes on the wait list. So it doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah, we used to, with slides, we used to send the applications back the day they came
Yeah.
with Howard.
Listen, I applied to Coconut Grove one year, 2 weeks late. I got the acceptance like 3 days later.
Hey, the last time I did the show, the girl next to me didn't even apply.
Well, I believe that.
And she just said, well, I got in 2 years ago. And they gave her a space. That was about 20 years ago, though.
The worst was when what's her name ran it.
There's a good director now.
Gaskin. Yeah, she comes from Winter Park.
Right.
She cleaned it up. She got rid of 100 booths and did what she had to do. She did what somebody should do in Ann Arbor with the Guild. Unfortunately, the Guild there's an iron grip. Nicole and Karen have an iron grip on it, so nothing's ever going to change. But boy, I'd love to give me a half hour. I'll straighten them out. I'll bring it back to the way it was.
Go to their meeting. They always have a Sunday meeting.
Can I
the
tell
day
you
after
something?
Ann Arbor.
I talked to people on the board, the 2 male members who will go nameless. And one of them was complaining about how they try and get things to change and it never changes. And
Well,
they're
you need to,
fed up.
they need to be voted down at the meeting.
The problem is voted.
Well, but it's only the artists that show up can vote.
Committees. They have committees. That's the problem. Nothing gets done. You have a committee. That's ridiculous. You need somebody who knows what they're doing with a business sense and is logical and is detail oriented and just takes care of everything and then delegates the jobs. They have committees. Nothing.
Just out of curiosity, is Bill Charney still around, or is he gone?
Who?
Bill Charney, the guy that I
Part of
believe,
Cherry Creek.
and he did Revise Des Moines, and he set up one out in Oregon. His track record is phenomenal of shows.
I don't think he's around.
From what I heard, he had a whole house full of artist artwork.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
I like it. I like it.
But I don't know.
Well, I think he also founded Naya, didn't he?
No,
He didn't?
no,
No.
Naya was, there was a meeting at Old Town
I
where
was there.
all these elitists got together and they said, how can we make sure we keep getting into the best shows and nobody
That
else?
isn't elite. That is not what happened. I went to that meeting.
I
It
can
wasn't a
sure
bunch of
believe Larry.
elitists.
Photography, it does, because initially they recommended to shows that photographers had to print their own work. And this was in wet darkroom days.
Yeah, well, makes sense to me. I gotta do all my own stuff. You should have to also.
Fragment Reaper now.
Hey, if I could have one made and make one, the original, and give it to a factory in Thailand and you know, and have them make them for cheap.
Nobody's
they're
stopping
handmade.
you.
They're handmade.
Well, so I got
Nobody's
another
stopping
question
you.
on
I'm the
this issue.
designer.
Okay,
Yeah, look,
So-
yeah, Ron.
say you've got a fiber artist that designs their work, but doesn't actually make it. They farm it out to either what they would call, you know, a local community of some kind, or whatever. If they don't actually make the work themselves, they just design it.
That's more the
In-house,
Allison question.
does the work get done in-house or does it
No.
go to?
It goes out to other people's homes to be made. Or
Well,
other-
So
but-
fiber is a very, I mean, I know fiber artists who are literally sitting and weaving their product or sewing,
Like
and they have
Karen.
told, yes, and they have told me that fiber is notorious for people not
Outsourcing.
really making their work,
Outsourcing.
outsourcing. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, in
China.
you know, you're not supposed to buy fabric and just sew it. You're supposed to make the fabric. So yeah, fibers are notorious, and even on Artful Home, which is if you're not familiar, it's
Yeah.
an online gallery. They do a print catalog. They started out
handmade stuff.
in furniture, right? They used to be called the Guild, and it was furniture. But I can tell you the shoes and a lot of the clothing on there are they're U.S. factory made. Actually, they do have some shoes from Holland, and they have had shoes from Germany, and they're nice, but they're not artist made. You know, they're factories, and even if it's a factory in the U.S., it's very different if you're sitting and making the work yourself, or maybe you have one assistant. But
Yes. So how best to write the rules for fiber artists to make sure that they're actually meeting the goals that the show wants to set of actually the artist that's in that booth actually made the work, or it was made under their direct
I think the
supervision?
rules are actually written fine for most shows. It's just that there's no
Enforcement.
nobody's being held accountable. Yeah.
You know, that stuff doesn't bother me anymore. It used to bother me. I only care about the conditions around me and amenities that we pay for and make it easy, and then having customers. These definitions, you know, I used to really care about this stuff. I don't care anymore.
Yeah,
Hey,
except the
Allison.
problem is that somebody else, the problem is somebody else will get in, right? And they're manufacturing and they're selling for less of a price.
Yeah, that's a
right?
problem.
So,
Yes.
and we can't compete with that.
Especially
That's-
printing on cloth, you know.
No, I think on ceramics too. I've run into ceramic artists through the years that not that I cared to know them, but they made molds, they sent them off to be produced Mexico or Indonesia or something. And that shouldn't be, to me, that shouldn't be in an art show. There were those
know what?
guys that made those wood
I agree.
wood
I agree.
tabletops that were maps, and those were made, each table was made in 3 different states by 3 different groups of people.
That's
And
not.
they got into
Yeah.
all kinds of shows, and that shouldn't happen.
My solution is not to do those types of shows.
But see, if there are,
That's what I try.
but I think what Allison's saying, if it's our market, why should the market get diluted with stuff that's not supposed to be there? Because over time, what happens to our clientele base?
Listen, I tried for years and years to get rid of this stuff. We used to have a group and we were just ostracized by everyone. Because you know, and you just give up. I'm telling you, artists are our own worst enemies about this.
We often are, but it's admirable that you wanted to try to make a difference by getting rid of it and talking to promoters, I imagine.
We
Trying to
did actually, you know what? When you go to a Zap and you see that they have all this information listed about how many people are invited back and how many actual spots there are, we made them. We pushed people, directors
Right.
to do that.
Right.
right?
You know,
And that's
there's a
making a
group of
difference.
us.
That makes a difference, yes.
What it's funny. Because we did such a good job getting rid of buy sell, and then the pandemic came, and then now you see these same buy sell people, the same ones that we got rid of, doing these shows. They're like roaches. You can't get rid of them.
Yeah, but see, for example, I do, the last 2 years, I did the first 2 years of the show in Greenville indoors called Artisanville. This year, they just sent out a cancellation 2 days ago saying they're canceling the show because they can't get enough quality artists in the show. So reality for me, well, I'm glad to hear that they're paying attention to that kind of stuff. I've lost now a spot on my show schedule, which I was counting on, and there's no immediate go in to replace that. So it does have effects that go beyond just the show itself. It affects all of us that were thinking of doing the show.
Hey, did you see that question? that
Yeah,
just
and
popped up?
and I have an answer.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, none of us know. We're all normal, and none of us know.
Experience.
But yeah, through experience, there are certain shows that are better than others. There might be 10, maybe, and those are the ones you try and get into. And if you go below that, you're
It's hit or
taking,
miss.
you just you have to accept it. Like Madison was like, I thought Madison and Ann Arbor were two back to back of the worst examples of original, having all this other stuff. And for Madison, I guess, well, Madison just suffers from having too many exhibitors. Ann Arbor would too, but for some reason they come over to our street. So out of the myriad of people that come through, there's enough people that aren't bottom feeders that come into my booth. So and sales can overlook, you can overlook a lot of crap if you have good sales. You tend to ignore it, but sooner or later it comes back on you anyway.
Yeah, what's interesting about Madison is in any one location, if you turn around, you could see the whole show. And it's over 500 booths, right?
Yeah, it's terrible. And they
But
charge a
in Ann
premium.
Ann Arbor might have 2,000 artists, but they're so spread out.
1,400.
Well, 1,400, okay. But
It-
you're not overwhelmed because you don't see them all at the same time.
It's funny. I got the impression that people that come to Main Street only did two streets and had no idea that there was the show on the other end. And I certainly wasn't going to tell them. I'm not telling them, That's the problem with the original show too. It's not like on the end. It's kind of it's hard to describe. I mean, it is on that end, but it's not on the end. I can't describe it the way.
Excuse me, Barry, Bellevue Arts Museum, BAM, that show,
Yeah,
is in the
yeah.
same exact category. They have 300 exhibitors. Then there's a piggyback show. And
Yeah.
Rest of the best,
The-
correct?
No,
that
they're
one is
gone.
no longer, apparently, it went away. And then
Oh,
the show hours are like from 9:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the evening. It's in the parking lot of the mall. They have the Greta Cannon, who's the person who stole the images from Sidney Lynch, among other people,
Oh,
is
yeah.
in that show.
The Steeler show.
So it's an all-star, a buy, sell, steal other people's work show. What a great show. Listen,
It
I
used
wouldn't
to-
do it
it-
anyway.
It used to be a good show, but over the years, it's gotten more buy sell, and I mean, the hours are crazy. It's very expensive to do. It's expensive to stay there.
Yeah.
So
Allison, you could
and
say
the long-
that, you just described 1,000 shows. They all used to be good. Because I was there. Now they all suck except for maybe 10. you
Which
know?
one was that,
Well-
Allison, that you were just describing? It's Erica.
Bellevue Art Museum up by Seattle.
Oh, Seattle. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's
When I lived
across
when I
the
lived
way.
out there, it was a good show, and Rest of the Best across the street was, and then the Sixth
Yeah.
Street show, that was pretty good too. But
And
sad,
Ann Arbor.
So
going down the toilet.
And listen, you only had to do, if you're on this side, you only had to do Ann Arbor and Coconut Grove, and the rest were just fill-ins. You could have fun. Those shows were great. I'll give you an example. I had a good show this past weekend, but 30 years ago, I did twice, for 10 straight years, I did twice what I'm doing now. Now, economically, it isn't the dollars as much as what you can buy with those dollars, the cost of buying, what it costs. And actually, in reality, let's say it was let's say I did 10,000 in 1990. To have the same sales It has to be 20,000 today. Instead, it's 5,000. So the drop is more dramatic than we think, that we're saying. Because I mean,
Which is
because
why you have to sell more expensive pieces, because the middle class has gone away. No, the middle class has gone away, and
yeah,
you know, there's the super wealthy. I mean, a lot of my customers used to be school teachers. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see them anymore.
yeah.
Somebody is asking here, how do you know what shows how do you know what shows do it before you apply? You might know, normal person doesn't. When I was first starting, and who asked that? Let's see. Oh, Judy.
Spectacular news on today.
What?
No clue what spectacular news you got today.
I know what I did. I can't speak for anybody else. I would go do a show and I'd ask people.
Happy birthday. It should be
Word of mouth is it has been, and I think is always the best way.
Always. I if I could visit a show locally, I would do that. I'd visit shows, you know, within, you know, 2 hours or so. And my very first show was local. And right, you start talking to people, you ask. I did, I shared the Art First source book with someone, and that was really useful at the time. Now, I think numbers are so skewed because of COVID. I don't know what to go by these days. But the other thing is, I go to the show website. I look at the previous year's artists. If they don't have artists on the website, I don't like that. I want a show to give me, you know, an image, my name, a link to my website. And so I like to see previous artists. That's a big tell, because then you can see the quality of the work. I have emailed artists, you know, is it worth going to the show from across the country, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I've done research like that. Going to the show physically is the best, but you can't always do that.
Hey, Allison, I got a question to ask you. I'm doing a show I've never done before, and there's not a whole lot of people. Well, there may be 90 or 100 artists, but I know people, you know, I know people are in the show. I know the award winners from last year, some of them, and none of them came back this year.
Oh,
I know. That's how that, you know,
what show is that?
Economawalk.
I have no idea.
I know. I don't know. I don't know why I just signed up for it.
It's supposed
So
to be a good show.
It's supposed to be, but why is Steve Worka not coming back? Why are none of the award winners are coming back? But Wilbot's gonna be there.
Who's going to
Well,
be
I
there?
did a show.
Jim Wilbot, bet.
So I'm
Okay.
assuming
I
that
did-
an invite, if you win an award, was there if they wanted to. They're just choosing not to, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not
Which is
going
kind of a
back
red
and they
flag.
won an award.
Well, it's
So
sorry.
Go
It
ahead.
could be that there's no other market, because sometimes you get awards because you're not in the market for them, and they're just trying to entice you to come back.
Yeah, nobody's coming back. Listen, I won an award at Madison that didn't have any money to it, but I got invited back, and I almost said, give it to somebody else. There's no way I'm coming back, even if it was a free booth.
I remember I did Southwest Festival of Arts in Indio, California. And I would say a majority of the people there who were really good artists, it was their first time doing the show. So
Yeah.
that's Judy. So Judy, that's another thing. It's like, are people returning to the show after they've done it? That's just, I'm not exactly sure how you'd figure that out.
Well, but
It's-
how, do you think any of that had to do with a different set of juror eyes that juried in completely different work?
No, if you win an award, it's an automatic in.
Oh, but I thought Allison was saying that a lot of the artists were first-year artists, which would mean,
well, no, right. They were first year to the show, but they were, yeah, it seemed, I mean, I get what you're saying, and there's no way to know, but, you know, and a lot of these artists, the first time trying it, you know, they were like established, you know, top notch. So I don't know, but I thought, oh, this couldn't, and then my neighbor was, you know, doing buy sell. But that's
Yeah,
the story.
that's always
Anyway.
fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Your
love
next door
neighbors
neighbor?
like that.
Hey, Allison, your next door
And he
neighbor?
was so nice. He was very nice also.
I wouldn't get the chance to find that out if it was buy sell next to me. I'm not talking to any, that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
think it would be for a
he was
lot.
just selling, he was selling turquoise beads that he bought like at the Tucson Gem Show. So other people could it was ridiculous.
And how does he
But-
get into a show like that? That claims to be legitimate. Doesn't sound legitimate.
He
to me.
uses that
No
same
idea.
jeweler's images that stolen from somebody else.
Could well
She got
be.
into a lot of shows. So she also, that same jeweler just did the Salem Arts Festival in Oregon, and she's doing BAM Bellevue.
Wow.
And they reported her and they wouldn't throw her out.
I do not know the details.
And that's something I would love to see show promoters do, is when somebody is reported as being a rep or not making that work, and they research it and they find it out, they close
Hey.
them down at the show. So
Hey.
all that money they spent goes down the toilet. And then you start making the statement, we will not accept this, period. So
I
you
got
gotta-
two instances of this. First of all, our local Marquette show kicked out since a year ago, or well, it didn't have it last year, but the last time they had it, they told somebody to go home.
Good.
And what's her name at Coconut Grove from Winter Park? The director from Winter Park ran the show, and she kicked somebody out, and boy, she got a lot of good,
Review.
from people. They love that.
Yeah, and that happened to Emerson one year, where he set up at Coconut
Mardi Gras.
and then he went down to Coconut Grove. The artist at
Right.
Coconut Grove called up and said, "Hey, I thought he was at your show."
And he won an award at Coconut Grove.
Exactly, and they
No,
figured that.
no.
And they wouldn't give it to him.
I
because
love
They
Emerson.
threw him out.
I know,
I
and I
love
like Emerson
Emerson.
too, but it was an incredibly bad breaking of the rules, and I'm glad that the show said not acceptable in our show, because I
I think
don't.
they
That was
sorry.
awesome.
They
What do you
should have
think?
given him the choice. Which show do you want to be in?
No,
Not,
No,
no.
I wish Coconut Grove would have closed him down too, because he was violating their rules too. If those rules that the show decides to establish are going to mean anything, they have to enforce them. Otherwise, it's open season on breaking rules.
Who
That was great.
I agree. So this person, Greta Cannon, she did get kicked out of St. Louis. They did it right away when the artist's work, who she stole and Frankenstein, called the St. Louis Art Fair. She also called Zap.
Yeah.
Good for
And I
her.
know that she also, this same person, she got into a ton of shows, which
Yeah.
I don't
It's
even
somebody
get.
else's
But,
work.
well,
I love-
no. It was, she took images from a site called Alibaba. It's like manufactured jewelry.
I love it.
That's
I
great.
didn't know that.
She took a piece of work from Sydney Lynch, who's a well-known jeweler,
Yeah.
and then
yeah,
she
we
morphed
know
it.
her.
She photoshopped it, and then she
Oh.
stole the booth image from the Dynamic Displays website. And what she did is she used the booth image, but photoshopped her jury images into the background of that. So if you were to actually look in the cases, it was this whole other person's work.
Wow.
Well,
So
you got to give her credit for creativity, but
the thing is, it's not even like the work was so, like, I don't get why she got into all these shows. I mean, there's so much work out there that's fantastic.
yeah.
So,
Well, it's
you know-
always like that. I go to the, you go to the best shows and you expect everything to be top notch, and then you see some stuff that's like, what the hell is this doing here, and why did I get rejected? So, there's some of that everywhere.
Yeah, there always is. But if it's lousy work and people are making it, at least there's that, because again, our market is so small. We can't we're not even trying to compete with mass produced work. I mean, we're not just making products to sell, right?
Right.
I mean, it's
Allison,
more than
Depends on
that.
who you talk to, though.
Allison, when you have time, would you
Yeah.
send me the name of that jeweler that was at the Salem Art Fair? Please?
It's
I hope to be meeting with the Salem Art Association in a few weeks. I
so,
did the
do
Salem
you know-
Art Fair,
do
and
you know
it was
Jane
Jane who?
P? Jane P?
No,
She's from Portland.
I don't know her.
Okay. All right. She did the Salem Art Fair. She's the one that told me about it. I mean, I was not there.
The Salem Art Fair is the oldest art fair in Oregon. I've done it historically for many years. This
Okay.
was my first art fair since COVID for me to return, and so I was really ready. And I have to say, it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had with an art fair. They
What made it
promised
so?
a lot. They promised a lot. They
Yeah.
did have to move the location to an adjacent field, and there were good reasons why they had to do that. But they hired an event coordinator from Eugene who usually does music festivals to organize us to get us in, and then it's out. It was horrible. The city didn't want to talk to the Salem Art Association about access for the artist on the street, so it was kind of a mess.
Then they don't want to show.
The neighborhood association wouldn't allow a security fence that was more than 3 feet tall, so they had this
Oh,
stupid
geez.
little picket fence in the view of, the residents across from the park. They did have hired security who were very good, and they were present all night, thank God. But yeah, there was buy-sell there. There was soap behind me. There were unfilled spaces. It was way too spread out. But most importantly, in the contract, they said that they would have volunteers to help get the 200 artists onto the field with a 30-minute window to unload and cart the stuff to their
30
spot.
minutes, forget it.
Yeah,
Give me my
yeah.
money back.
Cannot
They
do
had-
that in 30
They
minutes.
had 2 ATVs with sullen teenagers who didn't really care. And of course, an ATV isn't big
Okay.
enough for anything in our art fair cargo
Right.
van.
I got a
So
question.
that was
to
pretty
ask.
useless. But the
Wait,
thing
wait,
that
hang
hurt
on,
the
Barry.
most- The thing that hurt the
Mhm.
most was for the advertising that I saw. They promoted the music festival, and in fine print, there's something that says there are 200 artists. They never once advertised the artists individually. And when they published the program, you couldn't hardly read it because the font was so small. It's just a list of names and booth numbers. There weren't categories to find. It's just like they did. It was like the amateur hour.
Excuse me, Karen, I just went to the website and
Yeah.
there's nothing to click for it. It just says, see you next year.
Yeah,
Do you
right.
still have do you still have the program?
I'll look and see. Yeah, but the whole thing was a mess. And I actually went and talked to the artist coordinator the day before load in because I really wanted to walk the field. And the grass was too tall for anything on wheels. I couldn't get my rolling rack through it. It's just like everything went wrong.
Wait a
And
minute. The
we
people
signed
that
a
are
con-
running this are incompetent.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
shouldn't be a show.
Well, they're
Yeah.
not, they don't run art shows.
but they haven't because of COVID and attrition. There's been turnover and the people
That
just
isn't
didn't know
why.
what they were doing.
That isn't why, because they're incompetent.
That's
You don't
true.
have to know how to do it to actually run an event.
Well, I
and
think
there's
they were inexperienced. And so I
no,
calmly offered.
they're perpetuating their own incomes in a place that clearly doesn't want it.
I
You have
don't
to have
know.
the city and the people that run it want to have the show. Otherwise, it's a disaster. I wouldn't get near
Karen-
that.
And I'm not really sure what to do about it, but I have volunteered to say, this can't happen again. Please let me be part of a committee with other artists to bring this back to the show that it used to be.
Not
How
going
long,
to happen.
how long has that show been there, Karen?
Oh, what,
Roughly.
70 years? It's the oldest art fair in the state.
Listen,
And in the past,
Karen, there's no, if you look on the directory, it's Greta Cannon. She's from Santa Fe, apparently.
All right.
And then, I have more information I could give you. I mean, it's already been proven, that she stole other people's work and everything I just explained.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't walk the entire show.
horrible.
I was just too discouraged. But, we do sign a contract, we give them a bunch of money, and yet this is what happened. And I don't think we have any recourse legally, but I do feel that I need to get in the
Well,
I
some-
need to talk to the board rationally without losing my temper to tell them
Somebody
Right.
it's wrong.
Maybe you
somebody
need to
needs
lose your
Take
temper.
the show away from them. And give it.
I
to
say,
somebody
don't even
who-
have a show. Cancel the show. They don't want a show. They
No,
don't want it.
if it's been there 70 years, I would say there's a history to the show. Why not try to save it before you throw it away?
No,
Absolutely.
okay, I say
Does this
cancel it
mean
1
that
year,
I
and then
have
they'll
to-
come, then they'll come
Yeah.
back crying, going, we're not making any money. Our businesses are going out of business because you people brought all these people here before. And then you say, well, you're not doing anything for us. You're,
see,
you've priced yourself out of the market. Nobody can make
I
any
don't
money.
think that they care. I think they were just filling spaces.
But see,
And
I
My
would,
suggestion is go somewhere else.
well, but see, I would say from your experiences, everybody here, have you ever seen a music festival and an art festival would succeed
besides
together?
New Orleans.
Pardon? No,
Besides-
okay, New Orleans, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Take
so
away
that's
New
the one-
Orleans.
That's
What
the
else?
one, that's funny, Larry. That's the one exception to the rule. I love
Yeah.
it.
Right.
I would say, but there's no other good shining example of a music festival working with an art show, is there?
Well,
Well,
Arts-
they've always had music in the evenings as part of this show. It's
But not
just that,
conflicting with the art show itself, correct?
right,
During
it's
the day.
mainly, it's the local bagpipers that are performing during the day, but in the evening they have headline music and.
So do you feel if they took it away from the person who ran it, that runs the music festival, and put it back in the hands, kind of as Larry was suggesting, of somebody who was an artist or art oriented, that it might push it back that other direction to being better?
Well, in the past, they have had both parts of this event, both the fair and the music festival successfully. The point is, they didn't advertise the
Hey.
artists. They only advertised the music.
why do you people think that there's so many art fairs around the country? Why is that?
Well, there aren't a lot. I'd sort of like to save this
There's
one.
thousands. What do you mean? On
But-
any weekend, you can do something.
But not
I'm
in
gonna
the
tell
West,
you,
It's
Not
harder
on the
where
West
I
Coast.
live. It's
Not on the
harder.
West Coast.
generates income. It
Yeah, well-
generates tax money. That's
It's-
why these shows exist. That's why
Right.
we have power, that we're not using it. You talk about being kind, you should be angry. You should be telling them what they're missing. They won't get the idea if you're just nice.
But
I have
for-
to get them to listen to me, and sometimes just being hostile to start isn't a great introduction. So you have to start,
Well,
you
How
have
can
to
you not
start
be
with
hostile? It's
facts and
frustrating.
figures. Yeah, I am frustrated.
when I lived on the West Coast, there's not a lot of art shows on the West
Yeah,
Coast.
I
It's
agree.
not like
I
Florida.
agree.
I agree. That's the point. Save
So you
what we
can't
have
lose 'em.
because,
I
yeah,
think what Karen's trying to do is great, to save the shows that are worth saving. If it's got a history of 70 years, that's a good show. Try to save it. And if it has to
We
get
don't-
trashed, then you trash it. But
we don't really have any muscle to come back and say, you did enough
That's
of the
not
contract
true.
that we
You
signed.
think you don't have any muscle.
Feels like
That's
it.
even big. That's a bigger part of the problem. You
So what
have
kind
the
of muscle?
muscle because it's economics. It's about money.
It's about
Can I pull
money.
my hair out now, or should I
What-
wait till
what-
afterwards?
No, you're right.
pull it out. But what if you brought in things like art supporters, public television, people that would have an interest in art, wealthier people in the area, to support what you're trying to do to bring the show back? Would that provide any kind of a basis to
That's
give
the
you-
job of a director
Right.
who's getting paid to do that.
Yeah, no, we need to have an opening conversation before we go public.
Yeah,
I
sounds
just
like
need to
Karen-
find out if
Karen-
we're even going to consider making amends.
Karen's gonna be
Karen,
the
can
new
you just-
director.
Karen, can you just give me your website or your email quickly?
It's the Oregon Weaver at Gmail.
Oh, that's right.
com.
That's right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
The only
I'll give
suggestion,
you,
the only suggestion I can tell you, that you have somebody running the music section and another person running the art show section. It shouldn't be the same person.
Yeah,
It's
I
two
agree.
different,
I agree.
two different things.
Yeah,
And
they,
these days,
they
you
pretty
can't-
much treated us like cattle.
And they need to
Yeah.
coordinate, as I think what Oscar is getting at too, is they need to coordinate, but somebody needs to say, you're two different kinds of events. You can't overpower the art show part. The art show has been there for so long. It needs to come back. It needs
Hey,
to be.
Karen,
Mhm.
why don't you write them a letter and tell them that you hate the way you were treated? That say what you're saying to us, that they treated you like cattle. Write a letter in writing is effective. Tell them
Yeah,
they treated
actually,
you
I
like,
have been in communication with one of the board members, and I know that when
put it
when
in
these people,
writing.
well, I have written emails, I could write the
Uh-huh.
letter, I just,
But
it's
after,
it's a long list of grievances.
but after you
Yeah.
try your approach and bring in the media sources if you can. But so when it does go public, it goes big public and there's gonna be a lot of embarrassment on the part of.
Call the
people.
newspaper.
Yeah, I don't need to have that, come back on me, so I have to be prepared before I get
Listen,
involved.
I do it all the time. I'm telling you, it enhances your reputation. It's not the
It's a
opposite.
troublemaker.
I'm telling you,
What
I've never
about-
got, I've never gotten kicked out of a show because I spoke up. If anything, no, this is really true. I've actually I got invited to a show that I totally blasted, and I didn't have to pay a booth fee. had gotten rejected from it. I got a booth fee, a free booth, and they said to me, "We want you to analyze the show." It actually works in your favor. That whole idea is, oh, I better not say anything because they won't let me in, is not, first of all, it's illegal and it's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just the opposite.
But what about all the other artists that were in the show? What was there sort of a community group feeling that this just really sucked and needs to change? Or
Well, historically in the packet that you get when you arrive, you get a list of the day's activities, the things you're supposed to have done, your lanyard, your coupons for free drinks, your invitation to the artist breakfast or whatever. There was hardly anything in the packet. There
And
was
free
just a
pass to
sign.
see the music.
But
Yeah,
the really telling thing was that on the load-in day, there was a picnic for the artists that
Yeah.
another community group went to the trouble to get the food together, but
Mhm.
nobody knew it was happening. So the
Right.
community group made this dinner, and very few of us even know that it was happening. It wasn't in the packet. We didn't show up.
They need a
And
new director.
yeah,
That's
no,
that's what I said. That's what
Yeah.
I said.
yeah, I didn't know.
I mean, some
I,
of
I have not
they
had
pay
an
enough?
experience like this before, and there's part of me saying maybe I need to just stop.
But don't you have enough
I do
support
as an
from those?
artist, change
don't you have-
hats.
Can we revisit something from, I'm assuming that was the topic of discussion last week that I couldn't make because I was driving? Do you know what I'm gonna ask about? Crassel.
Oh,
it's,
Oh,
it's not, so, it's been on all the Facebook forums.
I've been kicked off of Facebook. I don't know, I got hacked and I don't know, I can't get my Facebook site back. It's been 5 months and I don't particularly miss it, but how gonna, I talk to people who are there and this kid is lying through his teeth and the director is backing him and not defending the artist, which is totally backwards. And hey, I think that,
They've killed.
I
the
think
show.
she ruined the show. I don't see
Yeah.
anybody going there anymore. I wouldn't.
You'll be surprised because I talked to a lot of people this weekend. They're going to go back.
They're going to go back?
Yep, because it's money.
there's
I
always
just told-
someone.
I told them,
That's the problem. That's the problem with our industry.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
There you
that's-
go.
I mean, that's the reason we're in this business.
Not
Yeah.
me.
yeah. My point with that one that I told people, the problem with what happened and that could happen to anybody next year. And they already put a present that they can get away with it and they're going to do it again. And I don't sound like a right-wing person, but that's what the kid is going to come and do next year. You're taking a chance of that happening to the next person.
They're gonna
And some
get
of the
sued.
Post in the bottom saying those people from Florida, what you expect from the people from Florida. So if you have an artist name, this is what I don't like people to put where your state is from,
Wait a
city you're
minute.
from.
This is another show that needs a new director.
Yeah. Well, ever since Sarah left, it's like being on a cliff. It isn't even a gradual thing. It's just like, eh. Unfortunately,
How come none of us artists want to become directors?
I do. I'll do it. They pay me enough. I'll do it.
Why don't you approach Crassel? See if
Well,
they're willing
it
to-
requires moving.
But it's
Hey,
also, it's a separate
Great.
career, like you wouldn't have time for your artwork. So
St. Joseph, Michigan.
I'm 72 years old, so if it was 10 years ago, I would do it, but I'm not doing it now. Unless they paid me enough.
Well,
How much do show directors get paid? I have no idea.
I don't know, but it depends. The good ones get paid. You know,
well, I was
Make
telling
it-
that
It's
next
the
week.
good ones, it's a full-time job
Mhm.
yeah, and it should be.
Yeah.
because they bring in sponsorship all year long.
And that's, yeah, and that's the difference. That's what the difference between good and bad. And that's why you have really good artwork, because the better the artwork, the easier it is to get sponsors because they want to identify with better work. If you have a bunch of trinkets and tchotchkes, for
Good
lack of a
point.
better word,
Yep.
you know, it's hard to get good, you know, because it's association, you know, you associate the good products that they're selling with the good products at the show.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
So the woman artist behind me was sort of wistful. She said, "I don't know what to do. This bright sun is changing the color on my bath bombs." And I'm thinking to myself, you shouldn't even be in this row. You need
Duh.
you shouldn't
Oh,
be in the
boy.
show.
Wow. Someone didn't know that the direct sun faded their work. Wow.
Well, they're
Karen,
their bar soap.
I will be emailing you the other person who did the show. And the two of you could connect. So
Yeah, I will.
just so
I'll
you know.
talk to her.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
See you
I know
guys.
Janet
Bye,
Newberg.
guys.
Oh, bye, Oscar.
Nice
Bye.
to see you.
You're leaving, Oscar?
I need to work, my friend. I got work to do. It's
Uh-oh.
That's a good
actually
thing.
work and installations.
Yeah,
He's
some
inspired.
Oh,
Yeah.
installations. You're
Somebody
not
will have
rushing out
work.
to make more pieces, huh?
What?
You're not rushing over to make, because you have to make pieces because you saw all the work you sold.
No, actually, I want to hang out, work with an old client. Yesterday, I was in the house of the CEO from Crane Barrel working with her. So,
I wish you were been over by me, actually.
well,
See ya, Oscar.
maybe sometime I would run the other direction. Bye.
Oh God, that's funny.
Silence is deafening.
I get one more question. I've got a small community group that's putting on an art event. And in the past, they went to the local Oregon Arts Commission for liability coverage for this small community event, thinking that it was operating under the umbrella of the Oregon Coast Council for the Arts. So we got rudely awakened to the fact that the Oregon Coast Council for the Arts have decided they didn't have the money to do that. So we're on our own. And it brings up the subject of insurance coverage for small artist shows. What should we do? I, of course, recommended everybody sign up for the ACT insurance at $49 for one show. Some of the people have insurance through the farmers markets that they do, which is cheaper, and they're going to do that. But I'm just wondering if we are missing something rather important about our responsibility to have coverage in a community building for our local art show. Got any ideas?
I did research on this.
Mhm.
The $49 is a waste of money. The only policy worth anything is the full year policy, which if anybody owns a business, they should have insurance. So ACT happens to be a fair price. You can go down the street to your local insurance guy and get a policy. It
Well,
might
the
be more
State Farm
money.
here, State Farm isn't wanting to work with the artist here at all. For some reason.
Okay, so it's not them. But the reason why the $49 thing only covers liability. I
Well, we
asked
need
them,
that.
wait a minute. I asked them, they've never had anybody in the history of claims file a claim. Nobody's ever slipped and fallen in somebody's booth and needed that insurance.
Mhm.
And you don't get if your booth blows over, you don't get that. If you have the full policy, it covers your booth. Okay, no place is going to give you, well, unless you pay for it somewhere else for an independent insurance person, you're not going to get coverage of your work if your work gets destroyed by somebody. you're only going to get the cost of materials.
Right.
And so you balance that. If you want a full policy for everything, then you go down to, there's certainly somebody there, an independent that'll give you insurance, but it's going to be more money. I think ACTs are on 275. I think if you had a business policy year round to cover everything, I think it'd be around 500. So you have to weigh that. I'm okay with just having my booth. If my booth blows over, they'll replace that. But the $49 is not something that anybody has ever needed. I mean, you need it because just in case. It's more like just in case you're sued.
Well, I just think as a local, barely organized arts group that they really shouldn't be having a public event unless they have some kind of coverage. It's
Hey,
just,
listen,
you get
well,
a
they probably
rider?
for themselves.
Can you get a
For themselves.
rider put on the location's insurance?
It's free. Yes. Yes. It was ACT. You can.
Well, if the venue should have some sort of liability insurance just to exist.
You would think, but it's their scam. I'm telling you, they put it on the artist. Why should I listen? I have to insure, like say, all these shows. I have to insure them on top of us. It's $2 million. And they gladly give it to you if you have the year-round policy, because it isn't costing them anything, and they're never going to have to pay it out because nobody ever has. So that's how I think that's how they see it.
I had somebody fall in my booth once.
And
I
did
mean,
they
it could
sue?
happen. No, not at all, thankfully. But it's a good thing
Well,
I
they
have
could, you're right.
liability.
They could have. They probably didn't
Yeah,
think
you
about
have you have insurance, so
Yeah.
you never have
I'm
to use
trying to
it.
mute it and it's not muting.
it. Right? Who, me?
No, me.
Oh, hey, I think what do I think? I don't know what I think.
well, should we have event insurance?
Well, you'd think that they would insure the grounds and everybody in it, the show itself. It got passed off to us.
Yeah, I know. Well, again, we're just a group of local artists who are putting on an event in a community building. And it just seems like that if the Oregon Coast Council for the Arts is not going to extend that umbrella of insurance, then we have to figure something out.
What you figure out is you're all business people. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter, and that you have to have business insurance. That's
And some of these people will object, and
I know, because they don't see it the way it is.
Mhm.
That doesn't change the way it actually is, the legality of it, or whatever you want to call it. But but that's what it is. This whole pretense, oh, we're artists, so we're special, or we're this. That's nonsense. You might be an artist in your studio, but when you're in your booth, you're leasing a space, and that's your store, and you're working in your store to sell your work. That's a job. That's a business.
Job. It's a business.
And yeah, it's generally beginners that think that they're like, oh, hey, this is special, or their friends or their parents that think, oh, this is great. Oh, this is great. I think I'm going to do this. And then they try it once or twice and go, oh my God, and that's it. So that's why there's a market. There's a clear market for used tents, because they buy the tent and then they try it a couple times and go, whoa, this isn't as easy as I thought it was. I'm out of here,
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. Nice to be able to talk to somebody else about these issues.
Yeah.
Salem Art Fair, boy, what a mess.
And that isn't even Salem, Massachusetts, where there's witches. Oregon's a weird state anyway, isn't it?
It's a good state.
You have Portlandia,
That's so over.
Is it really? What do I know? I'm an antique,
Yeah.
I'm a dinosaur. I don't know any of these things.
So I get to be a mentor at the St. Louis Art Fair this year, and the topic is why I do art fairs for a living.
Really?
Yes.
Did they give you a booth?
No, I paid for my booth, but if I'm a mentor, I have an opportunity to
Still.
return next year.
I'm jealous.
I've worked for it. I've
What-
worked
how-
for it.
How'd you work for it?
I have been award winner. I've been a juror. I've been a mentor.
Oh.
And I've been on the wait list and called to return. So I think I've
Well, I've
worked
done
it.
some of those things. I've done it enough, you know. I certainly exude my personality so that they know me, and that doesn't help. It could.
So they've had extensive flooding in St. Louis, by the way, like today, I think it was. And
but it's Clayton.
somebody
Yeah, it's
somebody
Clayton.
died in their car
Oh, gee.
driving through some flooded water. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, I grew
Yeah.
up across the river in Alton, Illinois, so I'm familiar with what it looks like when the river's raging.
Ah,
I actually am from there, but right now I'm in Naples, Florida, and every time it floods, I'm away. So
Yeah.
my son told me my
Oh.
basement has water, and I think they got like some areas got like 12 inches within like a day, which is crazy.
wow.
I've never
Lot.
heard that before.
Yeah.
So Karen, after
Mhm.
doing a great show like St. Louis, don't you find it intolerable to do that little show in Oregon?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
problem. And I don't want to feel like I'm too elite because I get to do, a good show once in a while. But what's happening with me is that my list of shows that I will apply for is getting shorter and shorter.
No kidding. Wow.
I used to go
Yep.
to Bellevue.
Welcome to the club.
I didn't even think about it this year. I've been so dismayed with how the direction of that show. And it used to be, well, this is what was happening is that artists would apply for Bellevue and apply to the Salem Art Fair. So they were on their way to the Bellevue show. So the Salem Art Fair used to have some very good artists
Yeah.
in their event because they made a plan, one weekend, the next weekend, and that makes sense. That's what we do. I'd be very surprised if any of the artists at the Salem Art Fair were headed to Bellevue this year.
We have that here in Marquette, Michigan. We get a lot of people that are like A-list, I call them A-listers, that, that do the show, and yet it's out of the, it's out of the way. It can be in between. Well, at one time when both shows were really great, you'd do Ann Arbor, then you'd have a weekend off, and then you could do Uptown the weekend after. So if you did the two, you could come here, do the show. But in the meantime, in those 2 weeks, you could camp out, or you could go, you could see some really beautiful, environment, be in a great environment and have fun. And there's still plenty of people that are really good that come here. It amazes me.
Well, actually, it's a problem. Like St. Louis and Plaza have a weekend in between.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of time out of the studio. Like that's the thing. If you could afford the time, that's great. But if you can't, then, it's in a way.
Well, my
a deterrent.
formula, Allison, always was to go do the B-list shows. So I would do things like Peoria or Naperville, or there was a
Yeah,
couple
I've done
others
both
in the
those
St. Louis
too.
area. Yeah,
I've done
but
both those.
and sometimes I was surprised there were smaller shows, but I did almost as well. So
Sometimes, yeah.
Right.
you just got to do your homework.
Right, except that, I've been on the wait list for Park City and Sun Valley, and I just canceled my Airbnbs because, I have a backlog of work, and I have some two bracelets that take 4 months to make, and one,
Yeah.
if I don't go, I could finally finish it in August. And I was thinking, well, if I were to get in, that's 10 days away at least, and then the expenses and all that. And so, it's interesting because sometimes it's better not to go also. We can't know,
Yes.
it's a gamble. But, I
Right.
already have deposits for these pieces, so
That
makes
work needs
sense to
get
stay home and
Yeah, that's a priority. But Allison, you also are doing other things. You are balancing doing shows with teaching classes and having a local venue where you can market your work. So you've kind of got a formula to make things work.
Well, I'm teaching less this year, which was also by design because it was too much. You think about how are you spending your time, right? And
Perpetually.
so, right. And, with teaching, before the pandemic, I taught 6 classes a year. And then it grew, of course, online. And I just thought, well, I don't have time to make my own work. And you always, I have more things in my mind than I can physically make. So the things I'm working on now, they're done in my mind, right? And I'm on to the next ones. And I don't know if you ever catch up to it, but anyway, it was weird to cancel the Airbnbs. And I've done Sun Valley for 15 years and everything. And I thought, you know what, if I got in, I would have gone. And it's fine. I'll apply next year and see what happens.
What I do
That's
is
all I could do.
I put a few shows together, and then I might have maybe anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks just to make work. And then I take that, and then I do my few shows, and then I go back and work. And that's how I have to do it, because I can't work on the road. So
Right. Neither can
it's just how, it's just how I have to
I've
do it.
actually put my sewing machine in my van and have worked in the hotel. I know I have.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a little hard to do that with a potter's wheel and a kiln and clay.
Yes.
I think the first 2 I could get away with, but the clay makes a mess. You drag that through the hotel room, into the room, and you got to put plastic down. It's difficult. You plug in the kiln that blows up the power, that fuses for the whole place.
Well, maybe you should find the local art association and use their pottery studio and offer to do some demonstrations.
No,
It's
Using
hard to
their
do that and do shows, I have to say.
come on.
You know what I mean? Like, it adds another element to it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Barry.
It's
No,
okay.
you're great. You're fine. Wait a minute, Karen. Think about, you're going to take all your stuff and go work, and set it up somewhere. No, you're not. It's hard to, you can't do that. It's hard to do.
I have done that. I took bolts of yardage that I had woven with me. I took my sewing machines, and I had a suitcase that was just a sewing studio suitcase. And I was able to do alterations after a show, which happens a lot, shorten sleeves, do the simple stuff. And I started to make new work while I was traveling. But again, you can't do the hard stuff. You can only do the simple stuff, but I got work done.
That's great that you could do alterations. So I always have to take things home with me.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is, wherever I go, I could probably find somebody who would let me use their torch. But I don't know, having that focus and everything while on the road, it's, for me, I don't know, a different mindset.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'd mess something up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't concentrate. I can't be comfortable. I can only be comfortable in my own space.
Talk about photography and reproductions. There was a time when photographers were just people driving around in motorhomes in Florida between shows and taking pictures, local pictures, for the next show.
Yeah.
And that probably still exists.
Yeah, they all do Howard Allen shows.
Right. Right. Or Patty.
Actually,
And then, but wait, Larry, how were they printing?
With an inkjet printer in their motorhome.
Oh, I thought you meant in the olden days.
No.
Larry hasn't done a show in 100 years. They're all olden days.
No, I think it's about 6 years now since I've done a show.
It
My
doesn't
year's going to
relate.
be a little different. I am going, usually I would never go to the Midwest without doing at least 2 other shows. This year I am going to do St. Louis only in the Midwest. I'll do Art in the Pearl first and then drive
That's
really
a great
quickly.
lineup.
And yeah, I'll do the Cannonball Run. I guess it's what they call it. But after St. Louis, I have signed up to do something to further my education in my field. I'm going to take a jacquard weaving class in Italy. So
Oh, I'm so sorry for you.
Will you take me with you?
In your
crossing my
suitcase.
fingers
I'll
that
be your boy.
we're going to
I'll
make
do
it.
whatever you
This
want.
This is something that we put off 2 years ago, but I've, been saving my social security to make this happen here. Right?
Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, that's great. And where in Italy?
We're going 2 places, or 3 actually. Florence and Perugia are going to an antique jacquard loom site, and then a place called Antico Serafico. Then we'll spend a couple days in Rome before we head home.
Oh God, that sounds so great.
How romantic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is the time that we need to go. Won't happen anytime later.
Yeah, that is great. Oh, congratulations. I'm so happy for you.
Well, I think it's going to be a period of growth. And after I knew 2 years ago I was feeling the burnout, and I think this will be really good for me.
Yeah.
It's totally out of my usual comfort zone. I'll be learning something new. That's good.
And the travel, the whole context shift, of not, just in your regular, whatever your regular pattern is. I mean, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. Cross my finger about the whole COVID thing. We'll see if we can manage it.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. Well, when are you going?
After St. Louis.
Oh, right. So you know what? There might be a new booster out by then. They're talking about a booster for this
Yes.
particular strain.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying September, I think.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully it'll be ready.
Perugia, what I remember about Perugia is the local museum there was like the bloodiest Christ paintings. Like so violent. But wonderful town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's
and
going
the
to be
the technique.
Yeah, it'll be kind of ideal. I'll have 5 days of intense weaving experience, and my husband will have 5 days of just ambling around, having a great time. And then we'll get together in the evening and have some wonderful meals, I'm sure. It'll be an adventure.
Yes. And what's the technique that you're learning, or
It's called a jacquard loom. It was the predecessor of what we know as a computer, because they created punch cards that were laced together to weave these intricate patterns. So you have to stand to weave. And it's just a lot of fine threads, using very fine silk threads. But the jacquard loom has now gone into the digitized world. So you can scan any kind of image and then create that with halftones on the cloth. So it just opens up all sorts of things. And tech seems to be a theme I've been following this year. I'm also working on, I won't exactly call it an NFT, but I've found a way to integrate my images with some videos I've made to superimpose it on the artist, the model wearing the waterfall scarf. And I want to integrate that with the piece. So when they buy the coat or they buy the scarf, they have this image that goes with it. So I'm trying to bring technology into my medieval hand-woven cloth.
Right. And it's also a way that still, it pushes the, I don't know, exclusivity of being handmade. Exclusivity isn't
so.
exactly
Yeah, I'm debating about how to present it, whether it should be a QFC code, or if it should just be a video on YouTube, or should it be exclusive to the piece, which is more like what an NFT is, non-fungible token. But I just don't have a lot of faith in the non-fungible.
You mean the latest scam?
World. Yeah.
Based on nothing?
Yeah.
Hey, I wish I invented that.
Except it's not a scam, it's actually an object. It's an idea that's recorded.
Isn't that like an offshoot of the pet rock?
Yeah, to the nth degree, my opinion.
Well, I certainly don't want mine to work that way. I want a little more prestige to it. So I'll try and avoid the pet rock syndrome.
All right, so I have a question, or just a general discussion. People have said to me over the years, I was looking at your website, and I really wish that you had some pictures of people wearing the jewelry. Now, Karen, you have really nice model shots. And how does one go about, like, I mean, I'm not even sure what to add. You hire somebody to, I mean, how does that work?
Well, for the past 4 years, I've been working with a style magazine, and that was been an extraordinary experience because she brought her level of style and fashion into the model experience. But before I worked with the magazine, I would hire a photographer and I would hire a model, and I'd be spending anywhere from $600 to $1,200 for a session. And I'd take a collection with me, and we would just shoot piece after piece after piece until we got it. And then I'd send them off to Larry and we'd cut all the heads off. So it's an investment, but my magazine friend, it was just that experience was incredible. I got some of the best images I've ever had. And now she's since retired from doing that. COVID made it too hard, but she was publishing a magazine every month. And I got a lot of print time because I was one of the designers that she was willing to work with.
Oh.
Larry, any input on model shots?
Me, no, I've never worked with a model.
I can, before you
yeah.
decide to do it, Allison, I'll be happy to talk to you about how to find someone.
Yeah,
what
but
they
actually,
look for.
it doesn't really matter much because you're not going to show enough of the model for them to be like a recognizable person.
There are still things that you look for and things that you don't want.
Right.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, you basically want to show what it looks like on a person, but in a really tight crowd.
Yeah. Because enough people have said it over the years. And, so, and then Artful Home also said it would be useful to have ring shots on a hand. So, I mean, it's probably something Eric could do. Like, he can practice on my hands. My hands are terrible, or no, they're an artist's hands. But so anyway, yeah, it's just something that we've put off over the years.
You
And
do know that there are models who are hand models, right?
Yes.
And you do know that a model has to be able to project energy into the picture that you're taking, or it falls flat. And if she's just a Gumby doll, it doesn't work.
Right.
It's not a good image.
Well, it's been a long.
Have to project.
It's more for practice. Eric hasn't done model shots in a very long time, although he's done them for a textile artist in Northern California, and they were beautiful shots. So, but I'm just saying, like, yes, I get that, even with hands, so anyway,
the most valuable model to me was one who had dance training, because they seemed to be able to know what to do with their body.
Yeah.
Hey, I could be your model. I had dance training.
Dan who?
Really? No, seriously. I danced ballroom dancing when I was in high school competition.
Well, that's great. That's good training.
See, now if you were a movie star in the 60s, you could have been tap dancing.
That's true too.
More like the 50s. But when was Singing in the Rain? Was that, I think that was in the 50s. And all those.
So.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
man,
thanks everybody for your input. I've been away for a while. It was nice to see everybody again.
Yeah, we wondered what happened to you.
Well, Salem Art Fair was one of them.
You need to make a detailed list of what's wrong and how it can be resolved. Because that'll give you something to approach them with.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think you'll be very thoughtful about it. Cherry Creek was a bit off their game this year, by the way.
I heard that.
You did.
I did. I know, I really did, because I was
Nobody-
raving about
nobody
it
was-
last year.
Nobody was like set up in their right spots, you know?
Oh, no.
But we all went with it. So on my street, there were, first of all, the show was very stretched out. I couldn't go to the other end of the show. It was too far.
Yeah,
But you had like on one side of the street, there were booths next to each other. And then on my side of the street, there were two and then lots of space, two and lots of space. And that's where the booths were kind of screwed up because there was some car parked. So one artist couldn't set up there. And I made sure to bring somebody over. And they just
Yeah.
told me to kind of move down the way.
yeah.
You know, which was fine, but and then the woman who set up next to me, she was open on the wrong side because I set up next to her. So we both had corner.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I liked it in the
So-
parking lot, last year, if you were there last year, it was
I
great.
was. I like it on the street because first of all, there's a lot of different bathrooms that you can use.
What?
And there was a really
Yeah.
good coffee shop right nearby.
Yeah.
And I like being near, and then the trees, that's the big one.
Yes, that's a problem being in that parking lot.
Right,
But
right. And
you're not near anything.
the hospitality was very far away at the parking lot. But so
I
yeah,
know.
the layout was weird this year. You had 2 blocks of artists, and then you had second and third with artists, and then there was the culinary stuff, and then like there were 2 streets in between of artist streets with music and then the culinary stuff.
It's hard to understand that because it was only 1 year away. You go back, you do it just the way you had it before, like a year ago.
Yeah.
It isn't
Well,
like
there's
it's 10 years.
construction,
One,
Oh,
you know, things
That's
like that get in the way.
construction.
one year I did
So that's-
Virginia. One year I did Virginia Beach, and the first person that set up on the block set up on the wrong side of his number,
Ooh, ooh.
and it threw the whole block off.
Oh, boy.
And then the last person didn't have a space.
Yeah, well, but all they had to do is switch spaces,
No, he paid for a corner.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but the thought of having a corner and parking, setting up wrong, that throws everybody off on that street. Oh,
That's
that's terrible.
That's what he just said.
Yeah, I know, I heard that.
Yeah.
So Barry, did you do Des Moines? I can't remember
Yes.
which.
I
And
did Des Moines.
and
I did well, and it was fun because
good. Oh,
Stephen King is really well organized. Excuse me. It's not a COVID cough. That was part of the problem with Madison. After doing Des Moines and having a reasonable expectation of having go smoothly and all that, and then going over to Madison, it was just a total bring down. I mean, a lot of people, I think, don't get along with Stephen King because he can appear to be a little arrogant, but I like him, and he's really well organized, and he really manages that show well. He, all those little details, which end up being good for the artist, is just great.
good. That's what I've heard. And you had
Especially
decent weather this year.
the weather was. Let's see, the weather was good. You know what? I've already forgotten. Yeah. I have to write these things down. It's like 3 days later, I have no idea what
If it was bad, you'd probably remember.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, it's fine. Mimosas and Bloody Marys in the morning before 10:30. That show starts at
boy.
11. Goes from 11. It's sort of like Ann Arbor, except it starts at 11.
Okay, those are my hours, 11.
Yeah. A lot of us don't get up, early, or get up, but I gotta prepare myself mentally for doing this. For doing it.
Yeah, when I do the local artist market, I have to wake up at 5 or 7, and I actually eat a very early dinner, or I eat dinner, and it helps me go to sleep earlier. And
Dinner.
it's just this whole, yeah, like a late lunch.
Yeah, I had dinner. I was still eating when we got on at 5 or 4. When did we get on? 4. Yeah. Yeah.
1. Karen and I
Listen.
got on at 1.
I got back here on Sunday at 4. Like, okay, Ann Arbor ends Saturday night. I was back home at 4 in the afternoon. I went to sleep and woke up at 4 in the morning. So I got 12 hours. I couldn't keep my eyes open. It's amazing that I actually got back here without falling asleep and going off the road.
Mhm.
But once I made it back, boom, I was out.
And how was Ann Arbor then?
Well, the show was horrible, it was torturous, but I did well.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
it's I did about the same I did in Des Moines, but I hate it. It's like it's all this crap around me, and then they don't really do much for you. It's you have to pay a lot.
It would almost be better if it's not a good show then, it sounds like,
I was saying
you
that.
know?
I was going, oh, this makes it more difficult. Okay, here's the problem. It's the guild. So, and it's kind of controlled by these two people that run it, and it's your grandfathered in. So there's really no judging. And some people that have been in there for 40 years that were horrible are still there, and it's still horrible.
Yeah, but that's because it's not juried, it's only screened.
Yeah, and once you're in, you're in.
Right, as long as your work is screened in.
The problem with those people is they don't know art fair etiquette. At least we all know art fair etiquette. So, they're gaming the system, they're moving their stuff out a little into the aisle. There's all these little things that I don't want to see.
Yeah, but there's so much there that you have to ignore it.
Well, normally I do, but I don't know. I was still fresh from the abuse at Madison. So, and then it didn't help that I was talking to people around me, and they going, "Oh, that was our best show ever, Madison." It's like, oh God. Then you look at it. So, somebody said to me on our street, like I was saying, "Hey, I don't know any of these artists," and he's going, "What do you mean? Of course you do." He goes, "I see these people all the time." Oh, okay. I chuckled at that because
What shows
I try and I try and do the best shows possible because
Right.
they're run simply because they're run the best. I want it easy. It's hard enough doing the show. It's hard enough working for months or a month or whatever, 3 weeks, making pieces. You got to pack it all up. You got to drive to some ungodly place, get a hotel room, and then you have to drive over and you have to set up, all day. And then you come back and then you sell, and sometimes these crowds are like driving you crazy. So it's tough. They need to make it easy for us. Or I'm just so old. This is what I need it better. When I was younger, it didn't bother me.
Well, it's nice when the shows are organized and
Yeah.
they do their part by getting people in and
Yeah.
all of that. And, and they, establish or enforce the rules to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's reasonable rather than chaos.
Okay, well, it's time for me to go, but it's good to check in with everybody, and I'll let you know what happens, if anything happens with the Salem Art Fair.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I
Nice
can't
to
wait
see
to
you,
hear.
Karen.
All right,
Bye, Karen.
bye-bye.
I guess we should end it. It's only been an hour over.
Oh, see, I
We have
didn't even
we have
realize
nothing else
that.
to do.
Right.
The only one working here is Allison. Apparently, Allison
Yeah.
Well, and
yeah.
has
Oscar
more
was.
business than any of us, all of us put together. Oh,
Right.
there's two. There's another one.
Oscar was working.
Well, I'm just in another room. Otherwise, I'd be playing with my stuff too.
I'm actually working on my other computer here.
We have our local show this next weekend, so.
So, did you see that article I posted a link to, Barry?
No, oh, yes, I did.
Ron's
Well, no,
long
you
gone,
mean-
though.
Yeah, I know. But it's a
Well,
good article about,
Oh, no, I haven't looked at that yet. I
no,
didn't
you
look
can
at
look
that
at
yet.
it. It's why photography is not a reproduction.
I'm gonna
Why-
read that too.
You know what? It comes down to one of my instructors would say, how come photographers only print, what's the difference in what they're doing and what I did on my summer vacation? Why are they
Well,
not
there's a
taking it?
difference between taking a picture and making a picture.
Yes,
Yeah.
well said.
I'm
There is,
not-
you know,
I'm not-
every, I mean, photographers have it hard because everybody's a photographer now with, you know, our
We all have
phones and
it
all
hard.
that. But there's such a difference. And, you know, I mean, the same could go for a lot of mediums,
Yeah,
jewelry in particular.
yeah. Like, yeah, I strung these beads together. I'm a jeweler.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know. With me, they tell me what they did in high school. I took clay class in high school.
Mhm.
You know, then the debate in my head, should I just tell them I don't want to hear it or just like smile and hope that they stop within, 30 seconds or something.
Or turn it into a sale, turn it into a sale. That would be
Oh,
ideal.
no. With clay, they're the cheapest people on the planet. The ones that have done it themselves. Yeah.
Mhm.
As soon as they start talking like that, I go, no sale here.
Mm.
And I try really
Well, I'm
hard
gonna-
with everybody. What I say in our privately in our meetings and how I am in my booth is totally different.
Right,
You know?
yep, I know, we gotta be. Well, thank you, Larry. I'm gonna go and help Eric install something. All right.
All right, see you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
We're leaving. I guess we're
Yeah.
leaving, huh?
Bye, Annette. She's
All right. I'm out of here. Oh, leave
right.
meeting.
all right. Bye, Barry.